Today is day 35 of 100 random acts of kindness. I was thinking back today over the last 7 years about different things that people had done for me, and I've led this incredibly blessed life with all these opportunities and privileges and education and people who I've met and the incredible generosity of people in my life. And I've thought about things that I will get to. But I started thinking back about the early days when I was diagnosed. And it's not like at the time I was on Facebook, and it's not like I, made huge announcements or anything. My kind of close-knit group knew, and that was it. So, as many of you know, I'm petrified of needles. And Wednesday, I think I was explaining to you, I just sobbed. It was just brutal. And I'm going through exposure therapy, and it's long and exhausting, and I don't want to do it, but my phobia isn't getting any better. And so I really try to kind of balance what I say on these videos about specific procedures, because when I'm about to go through a procedure I've never been through before, I don't want to accidentally find out that it's horrible. Equally, I don't want to find out that somebody thinks it was a breeze, because then I go into it thinking that it's going to be a breeze, and I've done that before and it hasn't been a breeze. And one of those situations was a PICC line. And so I won't get into too many details, because I know for some people it isn't a big deal. I am not one of those people. And so if you're watching this and you need a PICC line in the future, I won't go into much detail. But it's a mixture of, you have to be awake for it. There are needles. It's impossible to know where those needles are going to go. So I can put EMLA on, but I can't numb my entire arm regardless of trying. So there's more than one needle, and then there's the insertion, and it was just, so I had 3 PICC lines in the end, which I won't go into detail about why, but my first PICC line, I was petrified. And although I thought it was going to be easier than it was, I was still very, very scared. I hadn't really had many procedures done at this point, so I didn't really know what to expect. I was trying to tell the nurses how scared I was about needles, which didn't help with the overall fear. And so at one point I had one nurse kind of pinning me down, holding, it's very emotional, it was very hard. One nurse kind of at my legs. I'm going to say pinning me down, but I wasn't trying to get up. I just was really, I was kind of shaking. And then another nurse trying to, I didn't really see this one coming. Another nurse, getting the actual PICC line, tube up my vein. So that's as most detail as I'll go into. But they knew when we booked the PICC line. I told my surgeon. When somebody called to actually make the appointment, I told that person. When I got in there, I told that person. I didn't want anybody to not know that I was petrified, because if you need to deal with me differently, deal with me differently. Don't pretend like I'm the average Joe here, because I really need to be felt like I'm safe. So when I came out, after all was said and done, you have to go for, I think it was an x-ray. It's like an ultrasound-led procedure. It's been 7 years, so I think it's an ultrasound-led procedure, and then you need an x-ray to make sure that it's going the right. I don't even know if everybody knows what a PICC line is. So to get chemo, and I was having so many blood draws and everything. Mine was 53 centimeters. I have no idea what that is in inches. Long tube that goes in your, kind of near your bicep, a little lower. It goes up and kind of fishes around, not into your heart, but into, one of the arteries. I don't even know, one of the big veins up here. So when the chemo goes in, it's going up this tube and essentially right at the tip of your heart. So it pumps right through and goes through your whole body. They're used for a variety of things. It's not uncommon in chemo to use them. You can also get a port, and ports are more for longer term. So if I was in chemo right now and the goal was to be in chemo till the end, they might consider a port. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's what a PICC line is. So anyway, I went for this x-ray, and I mean, you can imagine, I was like, this thing better be in place. Like, I've just been in there being held down for like 45 minutes, and it was. So then I came back, I was allowed to get dressed. I'm all bandaged up. And when I came out of getting dressed, the nurse who had been at my legs, knowing that I was so scared, and not that I'm old, I don't think by any stretch now, I'm 33, but at the time I was 26, and even now I meet a lot of medical professionals who kind of say, one of the last surgeons I met about my hip said, I get kiddo a lot, and he just said, I wish I could take this all away from you, kiddo. And I do get that a lot, and I know some people wouldn't like that. I find it very endearing, because oftentimes there are people old enough to be my mother and father. Anyway, this woman had said that this is not the way it's supposed to go. You're not supposed to be 26. I mean, you're not supposed to be 66 either. Nobody should have cancer, but I think she just recognized that a lot of things were taken away from me because of cancer. Again, I'm not trying to make it sound like if you're older that things aren't taken away from you. It's just, I have had, at that point, I had lived not very long to already be dealing with cancer. I just get defensive at this point because I never want anybody to think like, oh, she thinks she has it so rough. Because, I mean, there are 5-year-olds, there are 6-month-olds who have cancer. I'm not trying to say that. I'm getting off track here anyway. So I get out of the change room, and the nurse who had been with me kind of rubbing my arm and holding my legs had made me a Post-it, just one little yellow Post-it note, and it said Superstar on it, which I always, anytime any nurse gives me credit, I just think, oh, how ridiculous. I've just been sobbing the whole time. Like, there are 5-year-olds who can do this much better than I can, but I think in the past I have had techs or nurses or whomever who've kind of made me feel pretty shitty for, I've gone under, right before surgery, I've gone under having a panic attack, anesthesiologist, not all of them, very, very small percentage, but they've really made me feel ridiculous. And if anybody wants to not have this phobia, it's me. So that adds to the phobia, is that every time I deal with somebody new, I have to explain to them, and I kind of just roll over and die and say, I'm crazy about this. I really need a routine. I realize it doesn't hurt. I know not to look. Like, I know all these things, but up here, it's way past that. So, so I keep going off track. I'm just trying to explain it all. So I come out, and there's this Post-it note, and it says Superstar, and she drew a star in the middle of it and colored it in. And it probably took her 30 seconds. I still have it. And it's my random act of kindness today. I couldn't tell you her name. There's no way she knows mine. Nothing. I can tell you the hospital that she was at. That's it. And walking out of there thinking, oh my gosh, you've just embarrassed yourself. You had to be held down. And having her take the time and obviously recognize that I was really scared, and no, cancer at 26 is not the way it's supposed to go. For her to acknowledge that and take the time and leave me a little note, it obviously has stayed with me. That was very traumatic for me. And for other people it's not, and other people I'm sure it is too. But I really, A, never want to give anybody the impression that a random act of kindness has to cost a lot of money, and B, that these things that we do for each other really have a lasting effect. And the fact that she got it, like understood that it was a phobia and that I wasn't, I don't know, putting it on, and that she left something physical for me to hold on to, I will literally cherish that forever. On to tomorrow.